Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Radnor Township Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee meeting for June 4th, 2009. Our first order of business is the meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2009. There was no May meeting. Any discussions, changes, deletions? If not,
approval.
Second.
motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, no, that was pretty good. Next item on the agenda is the draft of the West Wayne area change from C1 to C1A. We'll turn that over to Cheryl Tomola, please.
Okay, I'm just going to run through the changes that we've made to the ordinance. I'm here to remind everybody that this is an outgrowth of the comprehensive plan and a civic group, the Wayne Public Safety Association's desire to get control over the intersection of West Wayne and Conestoga Road, because it's recommended in both the comprehensive plan and the community felt that it needed to be brought back to what the code calls for C1A to C1 to be, which is primarily serving the day-to-day needs of the immediately surrounding neighborhood, and as such should encourage attractive, compact retail and commercial development in locations close to residences served. We have added the phrase pedestrian-friendly units and retail and commercial development because, according to the comprehensive plan, we want to have mixed use wherever we can have it in the township. It gives vibrancy to every community. That's the first change, and since it's about the purpose, I thought I would elaborate. From here on out, I'm just going to be really brief about the changes that we've made. We've added cafe to restaurant as under use regulations. We have changed clothes cleaning and pressing drop-off and pickup service. Laundry and clothes pressing process and self-service processing are prohibited. We've added those words, even though there were words somewhat like that in the original C1. We've clarified these items. We have added the word professional to office or studio to include the establishment of a veterinarian. We have added retail or branch bank in order to keep the scale of this community appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood. We have added residential use as is called for in the comprehensive plan, provided that there are no non-residential uses on or above any residential floor except for the common areas such as elevator lobbies, stairwells, utility areas, etc., that are unoccupiable space. And all residential floors are above the ground floor. That's what we've added there. Under area and height regulations, we have one change, and that is the roof-mounted HVAC equipment shall be screened by use of a parapet wall or other building material. The building height shall include all parts of an attachment to a building and shall be measured from the original grade, which is the grade prior to any land disturbance. This is very important because sometimes people grade things and then they measure differently, and that's how we end up with things looking like monsterization to us. Okay. Under special regulations, we have...
Entertaining questions at the end.
At the end, yes, thank you. Okay. Yes, I will. Okay. Under special regulations, under Part C, we have added about along each side and rear property line, we have added the words "and each side or rear zoning boundary" because some of the properties here are divided between zoning categories, and throughout the code, there is a request for there to be a buffer between uses. So we have added that here. The next place we've changed it is F, off-street parking and off-street loading. And we have added the sentence, any parking within the building area shall be shielded by buffer planting strips as defined in 280-4B and along the building area fronts and side, excluding up to one lane each for ingress and egress. This is so that we don't have a sea of cars facing what we are hoping is a revitalized pedestrian area. G is sidewalk access and sidewalk street lighting shall be provided and maintained to any new development or redevelopment of buildings. Sidewalks and sidewalk street lighting shall comply with the township specifications and be located to provide pedestrian access to existing or future sidewalks to encourage non-motorized transit. We need this. This is only a block from the trail. Drive-throughs and drive-ins are prohibited in order to foster, again, pedestrian traffic. Next thing we added is I, building entrances, parking, sidewalks, and walkways shall be located, oriented, and designed to encourage pedestrian access. J is we added clear openings, including windows and glass doors, shall comprise at least 35% of the area of the front walls of each non-accessory use building's ground floor. For purposes of this regulation, the height and the ground floor shall be 8 feet measured from the bottom of the building's main front entrance. Materials that are colored or distorted, such as glass blocks, shall not be considered clear openings. For a corner property, each set of front walls shall be independently satisfy this regulation. This is to foster the real retail sense that when you're walking through a community, you look at the shop windows. K is the ground floor of each non-accessory use building shall contain one or more permitted commercial uses, collectively occupying at least 70% of the area. This is what we have ended up with. We have been all over the place with this. There have been many ideas. The group here, Caroline Hummel, Kathy Wright, Baron Gemmer, Baron's wife Lydia, these people have worked very, very hard on making this ordinance be palatable to both the community and the commercial establishments there. So I think they deserve a vote of thanks. And from here on, I think we will hand this document over to the
Yeah, these
Wayne
are,
Public
just so
Safety
it's clear, these
Association.
are our recommendations.
Yeah, these
the
are our
Implementation
recommendations,
Committee, which
right.
we're going to vote on tonight, and take this document and hand it back to the West Wayne group.
Wayne Public Safety
Wayne Public
Association.
WPSA, and they can take it, dissect it, have some more meetings, not have more meetings, present it to the Planning Commission, and bring it up the ladder that way. And if they need our help,
here.
subsequently, we'd certainly be there for them. But this is just our vision, based on everything we heard, handing it back from the request from Kathy Wright of our assistance the first time
From the
around.
commissioners.
So, from the Board
Right.
of Commissioners. So with that, any, I guess, Cheryl, any discussion from the board? And
Right.
I know Robin had a couple of questions.
Right. Do you have
Did you?
questions?
Well, I just had a question
Put
about
your
the,
phone, microphone.
the HVAC, so that does not count in the building height, that's just the,
It does
Shielding.
count, it does count in the building height.
okay. So the building has to be that much shorter in order to accommodate rooftop.
Right, or in some way
HVAC.
designed in some way to do that.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Steve, the process that you just described, we hand this off, it's in the hands of the community. They run it through the normal process. Are you expecting this board in some way to participate in that? For example, show up at a planning commission meeting to answer any questions, or commissioners meeting to answer any questions?
Well, I think, Alan, that's a good question. I think the way it's going to work, if it's presented as approved by us, I see no problem with that. However, if it's changed or whatever, we can certainly go, and if there's questions of how did something that's not changed, we can offer support. But we will not be doing the presentation.
Yeah, it's not our document.
It's not our document anymore.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So,
And I'm missing, is there a building area, I mean, a floor area figure, and where is that?
Right. Well, we all struggled with the amount of gross floor area. That was probably our biggest confusions. And we have gone back now to the community of individuals who owned property in the commercial district, pushed back very strongly about the reduction of the floor area. So we felt that we could accommodate them. The Wayne group still has to deal with that. If they're pushing for it to be 75 feet, 100 feet, they can bring that up to the Planning Commission. But we're recommending this to be 10,000 to accommodate, which is the existing. Because one of the things that we were supposed to be doing with this is making minor changes to this ordinance. So in some way, when you do that, you're taking away their rights in some, or they have seen it to be that, taking away their rights. So we are trying to make this balanced between the property owners and the community. The community now exists with the 10,000, and it seems to be working okay. And we're also hoping to perhaps move this over to other areas. There are very few properties where this applies in West Wayne because the lots are very tiny. But if we make this a larger zoning category, other places where it may be applied, because it does have so many good points in it, other places where it may be applied, it will be a hardship. So we don't want to provide people with that problem.
But if the steering committee elects to go with 7,500 square feet, they can make that change because they're going to be presenting the ordinance to the commission.
That's correct.
That's correct, right. And we're just voting on what we think is best here.
Anything else?
I move we forward our final version of this ordinance to the WPSA. Did I get that correct?
Yes, very good.
Is there a
Takes away-
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay.
Matt, what I'd like to do is sign off on this one. We will. Sign off on this one, and then make a copy, and we'll hand this over to Kathy. And I'm going to sign it here.
So technically, do you want public comment before we vote on it?
No, we voted on it. We're handing it over.
Okay.
So we just voted it in.
Yep.
So it's in, right?
Ostensibly, the public comment has preceded all of this. I mean, we haven't done
Oh,
this in a
yes.
vacuum.
Right.
Right, oh, yeah, we've had.
Yeah, that's just,
right.
exactly. So if there's public comment, certainly. Thank you, Kathy.
I just wanted to thank you all
people
for
at
all
home,
of,
will you
oh,
identify
Kathy
yourself,
Wright,
please? Thank you.
West Wayne District of South Wayne. I just wanted to thank all of you for your input, your time, your energies, your opinions. We appreciate all of it. It's been a 2.5-year process since we first started out. We went to the Board of Commissioners in '07, and so we're all grateful that we're here at this point, and we'll move along, as I understand, to the Board of Commissioners, who will then send us somewhere else to the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I
there's
think
been a-
Matt will,
right.
that has changed a little bit. I think it's
Oh,
going to the
okay.
Planning Commission next, Kathy.
Right.
Okay,
But
good.
However
And-
you guys want to,
And we'll
take it
just,
and go.
okay, and depending upon how much we do at our steering committee meetings, that will then determine when we go to planning, am I correct?
Right. The next
That is
planning
correct.
commission meeting is July 6th.
Okay, wonderful.
So if you can resolve whatever things
Sure.
by the week before July 6th.
Okay.
You can be on their agenda.
Okay, great.
And then eventually kind of move things forward so that it would be, none of us like to have things done in the summer because it's considered underhanded or something.
Sure.
So to have it move forward in the fall. And
Oh,
then we'd be
okay,
all
okay.
prepared if we've been to the July
Planning Commission meeting. All right,
You
great.
should also double check, since this is a proposed zoning change, that there are certain requirements in terms of advertising. Just to
Right.
make sure that you submit it in time so that they can appropriately advertise.
Right, and Matt's going to help us with that.
yeah.
Well, since this is a
Yes.
proposed ordinance, doesn't it have to go to the commissioners to be introduced before
Well,
it goes to?
it did. Matt, you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, I spoke with our solicitor, John Rice, and Mark Rhodes. It's actually in the MPC, any substantive zoning amendment change needs to actually go to the Planning Commission first to familiarize them with it, and so they can recommend it to the board, so the board can send it back to the Planning Commission. It's going to add an extra month to it.
Right, so that's why.
Okay, I see.
would-
No, it's
I'm
good to
urging you
know.
to get it done by
Yeah.
July 6th. in
Sure,
some
so
way.
planning, BOC planning seems to
Right.
be the way.
Ping pong.
Okay,
And,
great.
um,
Right.
Well, thank you
Kathy,
again
no,
for the
and
whole.
please don't leave yet, because you guys put a lot of hard work into it as well. Very enthused, and we're here for you if you need any questions or however we can help you out.
Sure.
We certainly will be, even if it's,
Well,
what
I'm
do you
sure we'll
guys
need
think
some further
of?
guidance. I'm not,
So,
I'm not doubting that.
Feel
so.
free,
on every
and we certainly appreciate it. How about if I give you this
Oh,
officially?
great. Oh, sure.
Which
That'd be
you can
great.
hand to Matt, and as long as we get copies, that'd be great.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay.
Next item on the agenda is the committee reports for the subcommittee from the comprehensive plan, and where each group is with that. Since I'm the chair, I'd like to go first. So, and the reason I that, because there's a couple people in the audience who I met with. My portion of the subcommittee is the community services and facilities, and the goals of that are really to sustain the public services and facilities that we have in the township, obviously, and to see what we can do to foster that and move that in the right direction. What I did, the very first thing that came to mind with this is obviously the fire department, the library, and the senior center. And I think if everybody saw the local paper this week, there was quite a few interesting articles and so forth on the library and the dire straits with the state funding, et cetera, what we can do about it. So with that, I met with George Strummel from the library, who also brought in Kathy Mulroy, who's the new executive director for the library, into the loop. Susan Shapiro from the Wayne Senior Center, as well as Bruce Wilson, who is the president. And I had conversations with Dave Roderick from the firehouse. And what I wanted to do with that before, John, if you just mind passing them down, and Cheryl, thanks. What I wanted to do before I thought we could really attack this, I wanted to make sure we had an understanding of what each service was about. And with that, I asked the same group to fill out a questionnaire with the same questions and hopefully different answers that will give all of us at least an idea of where they stand with everything. It went from who owns the building, your public, nonprofit, lease terms, who pays for the repairs and maintenance, number of employees, the township contribution, where they get other contributions, current building condition, peer groups they're looking at, and most importantly, I think anyway, is the organizational needs, which is where are they, what do they see as the pitfalls in this economy, as well as what they need to do to get moving with that. So this is just for everybody's use to look at. It's not really anything other than that, except to give us all a snapshot in real time of each group and where they are. George Strummel is the president of the Board of Trustees from the Radnor Memorial Library. He is here tonight. And George, if you'd like to say a couple words about the library, and which might help us out, piggybacking onto the articles in this week's paper.
I appreciate your taking us early on. I'm a little under the weather, and I must leave, which, you know, also befits an organization that, after all, represents 200 years of service to the community. But that's not where we are, that's where we were. Where we are right now is facing the same challenges that everyone is facing across the board, from the federal level to the state level to the local level. Right now, your library has service of 72 hours per week, which is the most of any other library in the immediate area and throughout Delaware County. That is done through a very dedicated staff and a lot of local support. As you can see from the spreadsheet that Steve gave you, 61% of that budget comes locally, but the rest of it comes, well, also locally through annual giving, the Friends sale, which just recently concluded. All of those monies go to help this institution. This institution, as you have read in the paper, I hope you have read in the paper, if you hadn't had a chance, the paper has 4 different articles that feature the library, this very issue. And you can see that we are really in a challenge. If we cannot go on with what we have, if we can't maintain the status quo ante, then we must go in the wrong direction. And that is a direction that will not help this community, because our use has been going up, not only in items circulated. You can see we're approaching 410,000 a year, which is a lot of items circulated, but also just simply in the hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of people that come through. Now, maybe they're the same people coming more than once, and hopefully you're all guilty of that. But under any circumstances, about 250,000 individuals coming in and out. And until this building was built, the center of the community, the Windsor Room, even to this day, still is the place where people go for meetings and what have you. And so we feel the library is at a peak of its service to the community, and we want to make sure it stays that way. It is probably the most used facility by the public, by the citizens, by the taxpayers in this entire community. I can't think of any other institution that serves as many people on a regular basis. Okay, maybe Radnor Studio 21, but under any circumstance, well, I had to put the plug in somewhere. In any case, I think you can see some of the challenges we face for the future. The building needs renovation, if not replacement. We are stuck with a HVAC system, an electric heat pump, which was a big item and supposed to be the future back in the 80s, which turned out, of course, not to be the future. So our electric bill, which the library itself pays, is unbelievably high and could easily be more environmentally friendly and economically friendly. But that needs to be somehow addressed. And, you know, when your electric bill is perhaps going to be 10% of your entire budget, that's a lot. There are other problems, leaky roofs, flat roofs, all the things that 1980 gave us. That needs to be addressed. The township actually owns the building and maintains the building to a certain level. And that's, again, keeping it at least going. But that is one of our greater challenges. Our challenge is not in the dedication of staff, that's there. It's not in the number of items that we have, that's there. It's to making sure that we have a welcoming, friendly, and good operation, not only in 2009, but in 2019 and 2029.
Thank you, George. I have one quick question I was thinking about while I was doing this, is that Barnes & Noble, Borders, and everything else, their sales are down and so forth and so on, but circulation, even in day and age of computers and books online and Google and everything else, circulation is going up.
Yes.
Any reason?
Well, people are obviously looking at their pocketbook, but a lot of people are seeking employment through our many computer, I mean, you go in there, those computers are constantly in use, whether they be for the kids or whether they be for the adults. And this is happening, this is a phenomenon happening across the country. It isn't just happening here in Radnor. More and more people are finding out the library is a resource for not only recreation and entertainment, but for enlightenment and indeed for a livelihood. Yeah. And so it's happened and it is happening, and you can go there any day, and I would recommend that to everybody. Look in and see a mighty place. Well, hear the hum of mighty works. That's actually John Keats, but I thought it would be appropriate for anybody who visits the library.
Okay, thank you, George. Anybody else has any questions?
I just wanted one clarification. How many people did you say go through those doors every year?
About 250,000.
250,000 people.
Yeah. Now, that could include many people that have been there more than once. I mean, there are people that go weekly, monthly, daily, perhaps. I can't tell you about that.
Rick, how many times out of that 250,000? 1,000 times you were in there?
Well, I hope there were many.
Yeah, I'm sure there were.
It's just...
it's mind-boggling.
It is. It is. It just drives, you know, all sorts of equations in my mind as to how many people are using the library for whatever reasons, however multiple times they're using it. But it has to be, I would think, the most used facility in the township by a wide margin.
That is certainly our belief, that more people go there than any place else, certainly. And we have a counter. Now, that counter only works on the first floor, the main floor. We also have, of course, the Windsor Room, where many people are coming and
that's
going,
used
and
all
I
the
can't
time.
tell you those numbers.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you, George. I know you're feeling ill.
Okay?
What we're
Well,
going
I
to do
feel better
for-
having made
Good,
this address.
is, keep
Thank you very
moving
much
forward with
for your
this, and I think one of the next goals that we should do in our subcommittee group is to bring awareness of the use. I bet you if you go out and poll anybody, they'll say the libraries are a dinosaur because of all the technology today, and obviously it's almost just the opposite, so we want to make sure we bring that
No,
out
but-
front and to the
Yes, the
how,
library
with
will be here.
250,000 people, that helps the restaurants and helps a lot of things in the center of Wayne, so
And I
thank
didn't
you
even
very
bring up
much.
the fact that it's sometimes hard to get a parking space.
Well, that's another thing. I'll make sure I write that in.
Okay.
Thanks, George.
Thank you all very much, and again, my apologies for having to speak and then depart, because I know this is an important task in front of all of you.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan? If you want to just introduce yourself and,
I'm Susan Shapiro, Executive Director of the Wayne Senior Center. Most of you already know me. I've been around for about 15 years and seen an incredible growth in the Senior Center during that time. I was, one of the questions that Steve asked was, you know, the growth patterns. And when I first started well, about 15 years ago, there were about 30, 35 people a day. And it was people who were really coming for the lunches, which is really why this started. It was part of Neighborhood League and the VNA who actually got the Senior Center started, basically for nutrition. Well, we've come a long way since then. And 15 years ago, we had people who came and played bingo and a few other things, and they would have lunch, and then they would go home. That's not the case anymore. In fact, we're serving 2 generations of seniors. The baby boomers are starting to come in, and we are serving everything in between that, and almost 100 years old. We have one man who just turned 97. Unbelievable. He just stopped driving. And I'm pretty thankful about that. But at any rate, we really are serving 2 generations, and in some case, mother and daughter combinations. It's really interesting with the programs that we're doing, and that's a challenge to have things that are, you know, really fostering successful aging and healthy aging for those generations. The thing that we need to be most aware of, I think, is that the 85-plus cohort is the cohort that's growing the fastest in this country. And everything that comes down through the American Society on Aging and all the journals that I get tell me we must get ready for the baby boomers. And I do believe that, because some of the baby boomers probably won't need a senior center, but a good number of them are going to need a senior center, and they're going to realize that what we're doing is fostering healthy aging through our exercise programs and everything else that we do, and the book club and the writing club and all of that above. I actually brought some newsletters in case some of you don't know exactly the kind of programming that we're doing. So please, I'll leave them on the table, and I'd love to have you look at them. Those 85-plus people are coming in leaps and bounds right now. Radnor residents are asking their parents to move, to have them move in, not even necessarily in with them, but to be close to them, and they'll be in some of the apartments on Route 30 where there are a lot of older adults. Some of these people, you know, live someplace else for 50 years, but your younger generation has said, you know, I'm kind of busy and I really need to watch you, so, you know, come here. So we have all kinds of growth going on that way. That kind of amazes me. But with the medical technology, we have to expect that people are going to live longer and need more services. I'm going to bring up parking. I know it's a nasty word, but we serve anywhere from about 70 to 100 people a day, depending on the day. We have about 900 members. And so I'm not necessarily also going to give you an unduplicated number, just like George couldn't, but that's a lot of people with a very, very small staff. We know we'd be serving many, many more, but they can't park. And they get frustrated, and they ride around, and that's very sad. That's very sad because they're coming. There's nobody that walks into a senior center that doesn't have some kind of need. They either need our exercise or they need the socialization. And the socialization, people say, well, you know, yeah, they go in there, they play cards, they, you know. No. It has come down, there's been study after study, that being social, being involved in your community definitely increases your lifespan and increases your health. It absolutely is beneficial to your health. If anybody wants to see those studies, please let me know. So we've grown a lot, and we're very thankful to be serving in Radnor Township, where people seem to really care and respect the older adults that live here. But we're also in a crunch. We're also in a crunch because it's harder to get funding and what have you because of the economic downturn. That's, you know, everybody's going through that. And we also have one of those flat roofs, and it's leaking like a sieve. Maybe not quite that bad, but it is leaking, and it's $35,000 to replace it. So that's kind of a large number. I would never, God bless you, I would never buy a house that had a flat roof. I mean, I don't know if they even make them anymore, but I think that's a very bad idea, whoever thought of that. We need more program space. We need more parking. And we need to do some, if we're going to stay in our original location, then we need some interior renovations. No more do we want our seniors to feel that they should get everybody's leftovers, like in terms of furnishings and what have you. And we've done a lot to the center. If you haven't been in it a long time, it looks a lot better than it used to. But it needs to be jazzed up. The bathrooms need some help and what have you. I could almost ditto what George said, I think. So that's basically what I wanted to tell you. We are at this point at 4,600 square feet, I believe. In terms of senior centers and people who design senior centers, they say because of this influx of baby boomers and what have you, nobody should consider anything other than at least 10,000 square feet. So that tells you a little bit of something. I think it's really important that we're in the middle of Wayne. The people love that. I think we are an important resource not only to the older adults but to the families that they have in the area. And it's really nice to come to the senior center and then be able to go to Rite Aid or to the bank or what have you, especially if you're not driving, which a lot of them aren't. So I think that those are our needs. I invite you to come in and see a very humming, friendly place and what we've done with the space that we have. We have one little room, a man does piano lessons. I don't know how big it is, but I took a corner and I put walls up, and that's where they give piano lessons. He maintains the piano will never be able to get out of that doorway, but I beg to differ. So, you know, we have been very creative in the use of our space, and I don't know how to do any more, except that I know there's lots and lots of people ready to come. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you, Susan. That was a great synopsis. Does anybody have any questions or comments for
I do.
Susan?
Susan?
Yes, I'll come back because I'm supposed to be here, right?
Thank you.
Yep, I got it.
Can you give me an idea about transportation options? Getting to the senior center.
Okay. Each county has a Department of Aging. Ours is called COSA. That's the acronym. Each county also has a one contractor who gets the contract to do the senior ride, the shared ride system. Mm-hmm. And in our case, it's Community Transit. They're in Eddystone. There's that option, and that's something that we pay for. The people give $1 each way, and we pay transportation costs. And that varies an awful lot because Well, there's attrition at the senior center, and so some of your people who are riding may pass away, and then you might have a little lull, and then, then there's more. That's one option, and anybody who resides in Radnor Township can use that to come to our senior center. If they come from anywhere else, they have to use there is Transnet as well. But that's something that the family has to do privately. We can help with that. But the main one is the shared ride through community transit.
And is it something that you make an effort to make sure that seniors are aware of, that they
Oh,
can take
yeah.
advantage of?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're the ones that get them registered for that and what have you. Are you talking about in terms of the parking?
Well, I'm trying to get a grasp of, you've got a lot of people there, you got a lot of people coming,
Yeah.
and you've got a growth, slant here that's going to knock your socks off.
It is.
Consideration has been discussed, and maybe not with this committee and not me personally, about downtown parking structures. And if I'm not mistaken, that would be almost adjacent, if not right behind that location you're talking about?
Or maybe on top of it. I don't
Thank you.
know. We have a little island.
Thank you.
I think, that would increase the parking. I think what we have to remember is that older adults, just like all of us, want to be able to come and go as we please.
Absolutely.
And they do, I do see them trying to kind of solve the problem. They do some carpooling, or help each other out in terms if one drives and one doesn't. I mean, they do that, but it's basically the people that would be unable to drive, who don't drive anymore, who are using the transportation. I'm going to tell you probably 15 a day maybe use the transportation, sometimes more. So all of those people are driving,
Okay, out of how many?
anywhere from 75 to 100 a day.
So possibly only 15% are taking advantage of...
That's correct.
What I would classify as public transportation.
That's
to get
right.
there.
That's right. And they're driving longer and longer, for better or worse. So, yeah, it's tough.
Thank you.
I know I wouldn't want to have to ride on that bus. Anybody
Steve,
else?
after hearing these two presentations, I think it naturally leads to the question of what, if anything, is happening with Keating's post office project? Anything? Anything we
As
talked
far
about
as I
publicly?
know, it's absolutely nothing. That's the latest I've heard, which is nothing.
I have a question for Susan.
Obviously, in the current financial market, there's no financing available to
No,
them
that's true.
to pursue the project. I would hope a year, 2 years from now, and that the markets are more normal, quote unquote, as compared to years ago, and that it is something that can be revived, because the needs of the senior center, the needs of the library, among other elements of that plan, I thought were perhaps the greatest opportunity this township might ever have to solve a lot of problems without huge amounts of township expenditure. And if you read the paper, this week's paper already, they're talking about a $4 million shortfall, and times are not economically attractive, certainly for a major development.
My question is for Susan. Get back to the subject. The new train station configuration, will that be of any help to you?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Well,
I can't figure it out. I look and I see all these things happening, and then somebody told me there was going to be an elevator, and I can't figure out where that might be. So I'd love to see a picture of that. Every day there's discussion among all the seniors and the staff. What do you think they're putting there?
Right.
They took 2 parking places. How could they do that?
it's strange. I do believe, though, that the thrust behind doing it is for ADA.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all for it.
Which would certainly be a help, I would hope. for
And maybe
the
they would
elderly.
use that. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly they get,
I
they
know
get the
that
discounted
The
fares.
concept is that the end of the ramp is supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to levelly
Right.
walk off the train, which I know when my mother used to take the train out here, it was just
Oh,
a
it's-
horror show for her to get off, especially at St. David's when you had to kind of vault
Yeah,
off the
yeah,
train.
it is.
So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
I just haven't
whether
figured.
it'll be any help.
I think it might be.
Oh, good.
I think it might be, and that's something we can really push. I mean, that would be wonderful. I mean, there are plenty of people who could probably do
Of course, it kind of depends on
that.
where you get on. They may have to clamber up onto the train where they get on.
How many stations are actually doing it? You're absolutely right.
exactly.
I'm just every day it's a new day to watch.
Right, I know.
And that hasn't helped with the parking either. But
No, with all the workmen there, I
but
know, right?
some of the men really like watching what's going on.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's neat. Yeah.
Any
Thank
other
you, Susan.
questions? Thank you so much
Thank
for
you very
having
much,
me and
Susan. I'll be
considering us
back.
in this plan.
I'll be back in touch with you and George.
Okay,
and we'll
great.
keep going from there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out, Susan. One quick thing for the Radnor Fire Department, talking with Dave Roderick and a couple other senior members there. The major concern is the dwindling membership, which I guess if it gets to a point where the volunteers aren't there, you have to have a paid fire company, and I think we all know the possible pitfalls of that. So that was my subcommittee report. I guess we'll go in order now. And it's environmental and natural resources, which is Robin.
Well, Steve, that's a tough act to follow. I've done some preliminary explorations. First of all, the Environmental Advisory Committee is looking particularly at sustainability-related issues and reviewing some of the ordinances on related to energy. So they're looking at distributed energy siting, the refinements in the building code, and some other energy-related issues. And they're taking the lead on those. And so, it's probably not something where the implementation committee needs to add a lot of support. So just in thinking about what an opportunity is for us, one of them would be to take a look at the floodplain conservation district and how it interacts with the riparian buffer ordinance, and just see if they are consistent, and see if the floodplain conservation district needs an update. I've had one conversation with Julia on the planning commission. I'm sorry, I forget. Is it Huel? Pearl, right. And it may be something where we can take a look at opportunities to bring that up to be much more conducive to better redevelopment. So that's as far as I am.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Robin.
Can I add something to what Robin just said?
Sure.
The EAC, the Conservancy, and the League of Women Voters have been sponsoring a series of programs on sustainability. We just had our second one on potential sources of renewable fuel use in this country. We're going to have another one in September. We're going to have a couple next year, but one in September I think will be of particular interest, because this will translate into how individual homeowners can possibly use alternative energy sources to reduce their energy bills and also to reduce the impact they're having on the environment.
And let me just note along those lines that the EAC, one of the things we're doing is sponsoring the development of the greenhouse gas emissions inventory for the township, and we'll be developing a recommended climate action plan for the township, for the municipality itself, but hopefully by extension to the community.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Anything else for Robin? Next one, Rick Yulo, Housing, Demographics, Socioeconomics.
Thank you, Steve. As I'm the new kid on the committee here, I took the time to read through these sections a couple of times, and looking at the authors, I believe, there's some great words put down in this particular comprehensive plan. And one of the things that I focused on was you started by saying housing is more than the houses and housing stock itself. It has to do with the socioeconomics and the different income levels across the township. So I started trying to work that into practical knowledge, and started doing a little research with the local real estate agents about what is currently in the in the listing houses for sale and what has passed in, say, the last couple of years. Now, obviously, there's been a swift decline in both the numbers of houses sold and also a pretty steep decline in their actual pricing. So currently, there's a bit of a shift going on, but I'm going to have to make the assumption that just as the tide goes up, all boats float. On the way back down, the same thing happens. There was particular interest to me in the comprehensive plan about trying to preserve low and moderate income housing throughout the township. And if you look at the current prices of houses and you go through and understand the median price as well as some of the other levels that exist inside of the homes for sale, you'll discover that Radnor Township, first of all, is a very wealthy community. I don't think that's any surprise to any of us here. But that there are some plateaus within the homes for sale that clearly don't meet low or moderate income thresholds. There's plateaus that exist in about the 1.3 million to 2.1 million area that tend to drive the average home price very, very high. When you look at the very bottom of the scale, you'll find that some of the sales that are available these days are condominiums, many at the Radnor House. Some of the other lower and moderate income housing is in Garrett Hill, some of it in West Wayne, in a couple of the areas behind, if you will, the commercial districts that we've talked about, and some areas in actually small pockets in North Wayne itself. But none of them really get anywhere close to what that median price is, because it is so high at this point that it really it proffers a huge gap in between what is affordable housing if you're using low and moderate income as your definition and the average price of housing in Radnor Township. All it led me to determine was that I need to do more research to find out, and there's many reasons for this. We all see it. We drive through our township and understand that some homes get purchased, they'll get demolished, they'll get increased. Cheryl, what was the term you used?
Monsterization.
I would have to admit that that probably drives pricing up as opposed to driving it down. And in this case, the median is very, very high. So if you use the comprehensive plan as your guide, and I'm assuming that you all work very hard to come up with those concepts, preserving the existing housing stock is sort of it's an eel right now. It's slipping away. And it's happening usually because of that. So my research has shown that more effort really needs to be made if you're going to stick to those goals and objectives. And I don't have any particular items I could point to and say, here's the reasons why specifically, other than the obvious which I've mentioned. But I also don't have much of the demographic information that I need. And part of that has to do with the fact that we have a pretty good sizable influx of students that come and go every year. And amongst the low and moderate income housing, much of it is occupied by students, and they may not actually have what we would consider threshold income, meaning if you earn less than $8,500 a year and that's all going to your rent, you don't sort of fall into the socioeconomic realm of categorization. You're not really considered as being a wage earner. So there's disparate pieces of information that I've been trying to put together here, and it's a little bit more difficult than I originally assumed. Not only that, but the 2003 comprehensive plan was basically using the data that was at the time 2 or 3 years old from the census. We're just a year away from that process beginning, but 2 years away from any real data being generated by it. So even though there's great promise with the electronic, vacuuming of information from everybody's life that's coming up, they promised me in 2010, it's not going to generate real data, at least in Radnor Township, for at least a year after that. But it's not going to deter me from doing more research. And much of it is online, but I found that in those low and moderate income neighborhoods, it's, you really have to get out there and A, understand what housing stock is available, and B, it's going to take, I think, a little bit more possibly face-to-face and discussions to find out with you, with also many of the residents of Radnor Township, and maybe those that are looking for the housing stock that is low to moderate income, to get closer to a discussion that is more worthwhile. So with that, I've started it. I haven't gotten enough information to sit in front of you now and explain where I think the end of it is, nor do I really have a great executive summary at this point. But those are some points that I've discovered so far in the research that I've done. And I'm looking to you all and you all to try and support it by giving me some input. And I'll be sending out some information, as Steve has done here, to try and start a compiling process. So I would ask you for all your help when you get it.
But Rick, thank you very much. Actually, that was a great update or insight, however you want to put it.
Can
but,
I just
very much
suggest
appreciated.
one thing that we might think about? I'm not sure this is appropriate necessarily for this committee, but the process of undertaking the census is, as we all know, is a huge undertaking. And there are historically certain groups that are always undercounted. And I know there are some urban areas, larger cities, who are starting to do this kind of pre-work involved in trying to identify where the various units are. And, you know, the better data you have, the better planning that you can do. And I don't know if there's anything that we could think about up front, whether it's a campaign to encourage people to send back the census, so that we can, make sure that Radnor really good information comes out of it. I mean, they only come around every 10 years. I don't know if the township does something or what we could think about doing to help get a really good, accurate census count.
One of the things that's interesting about this one this year is they finally started using handheld computers. And you're right, there's a couple of phases of the census, and the pre-phase of the census is just to make sure that the addresses are correct. And so they've almost completed that process, and they're months and months ahead of time because the handheld computers had, everyone thought that it was going to be more difficult than it was. And it also turns out that there's an awful lot of folks that they've hired to do this job that are well above the grade that they used to get because of the downturn in the economy. So you have, right, you have, computer science professors running out there and checking addresses. But that aside, that second phase is the most difficult, in which it goes now back down to a clipboard, and it's beaten feet. You have to get down there to the address, and you have to actually do the inquisition is, they don't like to call it that, but that's of course what it is, and that's where you find that information starts flying away because people don't want to reveal the data of what goes on in their household. We are seeing, I should say that we, having been on the Garrett Health Steering Committee for the past 18 months, we find a challenge of trying to gather information to respond to questions regarding the students and the rental activity that takes place in Garrett Hill. The little 900-foot-long section of Garrett Hill, you'd think you could find every mouse that was underneath the houses there, but the truth of the matter is even there it is difficult to try and gather that information for two reasons. One, they don't particularly, students, many of them don't actually engage in the discussions that you ask them to. And two, they're only there for a few months. So you're going to get a snapshot, if you're lucky, of what's going on at that period of time or by semester. We're trying to make effort actually there to see if we can't have start the year off with sort of an orientation to the students next year to hope that they will get a better picture of what the local ordinance says about the requirements, but also to just engage them and talk to them and find out who they are and let them know who we are. And that way we feel that that'll be a better measure towards getting more accurate information, at least in that one specific instance. So you're right. You're very right about that. It's a challenge to come up with this information almost in any instance.
Thanks, Rick. Matt, is there anybody in the township we can talk to about Dottie's idea, just to take it another step?
No, I think it's a great idea, raising awareness. Rick, you seem to be more familiar certainly than I am. When's this, is there mailings going out? Are people knocking on doors? When will this occur?
I haven't seen anything, and I didn't actually look at their schedule. But
Well, if you know when, then we can, put something on our website, telling people that how important this is. I think it's a great idea.
Great, I will do that.
Steve, I had one other question. When we looked at the plan, I mean, when we were doing the plan, it became clear that Radnor actually has more rental units than surrounding townships, and not just the individual ones, but apartment houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, that was also contributing to the affordability of housing in the township, and we flagged the need to make sure that that didn't go away, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be part of your analysis.
When I started looking across, and I mentioned earlier about the Radnor house with condominiums, it seems, and I want to be careful of the way we say this, but this is a great place to live and launch. And if you have an apartment building and it brings in a certain amount of net income for you as an investor or as an owner, and the opportunity is there to remodel it and reestablish it as possibly townhomes or condominiums, much of that has gone on. Not much of it, but some of that has gone on, which creeps into the affordability factor, because it goes from a monthly rental of X to all of a sudden a 20% or 15% down payment, and then a mortgage along with the associated fees. That doesn't apply across every apartment in the township of Radnor, but it definitely, there was creep there, and that happened across the past 6 years since the plan was written. So again, there I'm going back and trying to find out, if you started with an apartment building that had X number of units, how many units today are still as low and moderate income apartments versus not in that range or have become condominiums. So it's part of the research that's going on. But you're right, Robin. That's where the meat of it is.
Anybody else? Rick, thanks again. That was great. Appreciate it.
welcome.
Al, Business and Economic Development.
Steve, thanks. I was struck, by the way, it's always interesting doing business and economic development in a recession. Thank you for assigning that to me, Tony.
So if you don't show up to the meetings.
I know, it's always when you don't go to the meeting that you end up getting that. I understand the math on that. What struck me about reviewing this section and getting ready to talk about it tonight is the comprehensive nature of the goals that were laid out, mostly by the people on this committee several years ago, but also by how much has been accomplished. And I just want to briefly state the goals and recommendations, and then we can take a look at what hasn't been accomplished. And there's some giant holes in this thing, some stuff that hasn't been accomplished, some of which has already been brought up tonight. But in this section, again, this is 2003, protect and enhance the character and mixed uses in Wayne as a special town center, one primary goal. Protect and enhance the smaller communities in the township, specifically mentioning Garrett Hill and other neighborhood districts along Conestoga Road. Restrict expansion around the Blue Route, I-476, and maintain the township's commercial tax base to provide balanced contribution financially to the township. Just taking a look at those 4 goals, it is astounding that when you take a look at goal number 1, since this has been written, the Wayne overlay has been put in place directly dealing with things like mixed use and expanding the pedestrian nature of the township, the town center. Clearly, in terms of the smaller commercial districts, what's been done in Garrett Hill and what's been done in West Wayne is 2 prime examples of that. We've tried to do some of that in Ithan. It's tough to get a little bit of focus on on that small town center, but those two are well along, and the third one, Ethan, is being focused on, but directly a result of this plan, and largely due to not only the planning process, but quite frankly, grassroots effort by the community. Who would have ever guessed that you would have the two major non-primary commercial districts in the township with the kind of grassroots effort to get you where you are here tonight, so it's pretty phenomenal. In terms of zoning and protecting the corridor around the Blue Route, clearly there hasn't been any development there, so that's been very key. And interestingly, as it relates to the commercial tax base, since '03, what's the 900-pound gorilla which was written up in the township, which has left? Clearly Wyeth. So that was a huge tax rateable loss to be replaced by a whole bunch of smaller tax ratables, and some of this $4 million shortfall which they're talking about, which I think is, I can't believe that that's the right number. It sounds way too large, but maybe in fact it is. So a lot has been done as it relates to the taking a look at Wayne and maintaining the character of Wayne and still making it a viable business community, not only in downtown but in some of these smaller commercial districts. So hugely successful. Obviously, one of the areas that was focused on in terms of recommendations to support all this, and it was mentioned twice tonight by people who were presenting during Steve's portion, which was parking. A driver to affect the pedestrian nature and the success of at all levels, whether it's the senior center or the restaurant district or just going to the post office to drop a letter off, it all seems to be driven around parking. And quite frankly, I can't figure out why we can't solve the parking problem in this township. I know it's very difficult. I know, as John pointed out, the economics are a challenge. The township doesn't necessarily want to put in the kind of money that is the cost per parking space to get a concentrated structure. There's probably some other things that are driving it. But in reality, parking continues to come up time and time again, regardless of who's presenting in front of the commissioners, the Planning Commission, this document, tonight when we're reviewing sort of where we are in terms of the comprehensive plan. It all seems to come back to the parking concept. And there's the number of recommendations and things to look at, including detailed studies and making changes on this and making changes on that, just is not getting anywhere. So I have to take a look at overall where we've done a tremendous amount has been accomplished to maintain Radnor, to be Radnor, but also taking a look at things that haven't been done, and somehow we've got to get parking off center and try to deal with that as a prospectively what this committee should be involved in. And whether it's a parking garage, whether it's just altering, finding other ways to deal with the parking issue, clearly is an issue as it relates to mixed use and the number of condos that have been built, and the whole concept of walking to the center of Wayne, the development of the restaurant district. Clearly a huge success. Second big thing, and then I can hand it off to the next person, is enhancing the town center to allow a focal point for residents to go that is sort of off the cross corridor of Route 30 and North Wayne Avenue. And part of that was a sort of a town common or a town green. Everyone's familiar with the Boston Common, but something like that, which could be, let's say just south of the highway, maybe around the post office development, the library development. There's some talk about using the new field at the school to sort of be a focus for a town center. But you can see how we haven't done that, but have the Keating development or the post office development that ties in the library, what you could do with sort of moving the pedestrian flow a little bit off of that major intersection, how difficult it is to get across Lancaster Avenue. You could see, and that is clearly not being done now, and now we're in a situation where the economics of everything that we would like to do is probably on hold until the situation redresses itself. So a lot of work has been done to think about what Wayne needs. A lot has been done to satisfy that implementation. Anyone who ever thought that the comprehensive plan was a 10-year static document just has to look at Section 4 and see how much has been done. It is clearly not a static document. And a lot of it's due to this committee and the residents, that are some of which are sitting here tonight. So my recommendations would be, the next time we go through this, is focus on parking, focus on the town center, town common issue, and continue to drive the other aspects of this part of the plan.
Thank you, Al.
One of the problems with the town center, and specifically at the moment, the North Wayne Avenue crosswalk,
Right.
are that in the current budget climate
Right.
in the township, things like that are not going to be funded.
Right.
They had approved the crosswalk up to the point of putting out for bid what it was going to actually cost to do. That is now off the table until
Right.
a very different economic climate surrounds us. That would also be true with that gathering spot.
Right.
The funding for things like that, though so desirable, just cannot be approved when they're looking at significant tax increases or reduction in services to continue to operate.
Right, the math doesn't work.
Yeah.
Math doesn't work right now, and the loss of Wyeth, somewhat offset by the fact that Lincoln Financial has moved their headquarters
Yep.
out of Philadelphia
Yep.
to Radnor. That's a big
Yep.
deal in terms of what that has done for the township. There's only so much office space, there's only so much you can absorb going forward. The reality is, we have to get through this period. But at the same time, I think we can still do the planning on the parking, we can still talk about the town center, we can talk about all of that as it relates to where we want to go prospectively, and the economics will work out at some point, but it's not going to be the next year or two.
Any comments, questions for Al? Thank you, Al, very much appreciated. Cheryl, transportation circulation?
Well, we have been working, John and I, have been working on our, this is kind of part open space and recreation, part transportation, but we have submitted a, I don't know what you call a proposal to receive stimulus money to extend the trail. We hope to extend the trail underneath Radnor Chester Road, over to Martha Brown's Woods, and along the side of the Blue Route and down to the ever-troubled Ithan, where we hope to have a vibrant commercial community to accept it. This has been very exciting. We have revitalized our Friends of Radnor Trails. Not that we were ever dormant, but we have really gotten into action to kind of move this forward. This is a major transportation thing, and it's also a recreation thing, and we have been working on it pretty steadily. And so I think that's a good thing. I'm also am getting involved with the Safe Streets to School, which fosters pedestrian transit of children to get to school, and finding safe ways and advising communities how to accommodate walkers to school. And so as such, I'm going to a conference later this month about it. And you know I love that, John, you were laughing at me. But I think it's a very important thing to do, because people from the other side of West Wayne now don't walk to the middle school, and there's really no reason not to. So it would be nice to get fewer cars on the road, and more healthy children out there walking to school. That's all part of my transportation idea here.
In grammar school, I walked like a mile and a half uphill
In the
to
snow?
school
snow.
each day, and uphill home each night.
Yeah, okay.
A long time ago.
That was your
guys.
comment? Okay.
Do you have a shot at the stimulus money?
Well, we hope so. We got wonderful endorsements from all the civic organizations that we can imagine. The township commissioners are behind it, and we went through Representative Sestak's office, who fostered our application, so we're hoping so.
And for
I'm so
that,
glad to
there
know
is
it.
money.
I'm so glad to know it's shovel ready.
Well, it is. Well, it certainly is. We have to dig that hole underneath the, that's a lot of shoveling, underneath Radnor Chester Road, to get it so that we now have a safer crossing. It is all about safety and pedestrian transit. So,
Great, thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
Any questions or comments for Cheryl? Okay, thank you, Cheryl, appreciate it. I don't know how you did that with all the West Wayne time you're doing, so very much appreciate it. John Fisher, Open Space and Recreation.
Well, Cheryl has stolen a little bit of my thunder here. You should have called me first, but let me just elaborate a little bit more on what Cheryl's been talking about. We are trying to implement goal number 123, to be very specific about what we're doing, which is the extension of the trail into Martha Brown's Woods. Last year, a committee was formed to take a look at the feasibility of doing this, a community group. And Bob Thomas, who is the kind of the trail guru in this area in terms of planning, yes, he is, if you want to design a trail, he's the one you hire. So the township hired him, and the committee met, and Bob Thomas prepared a report on the feasibility of extending the trail, and it's not that extensive a project. The most expensive component is going underneath Radnor Chester Road. If you don't do that in the first phase, it's really a very manageable project. We have worked, as Cheryl said, with Friends of Radnor Trails, with the Radnor Conservancy, with this community group to really develop a plan for going ahead with this project. We met last week with John Granger, the acting township manager, because we're going to strike Robin's comment from the record, because this is not a shovel-ready project. So we're going a little bit backwards. The township's put in an application to get the money. We really need to start to do the planning, and that's what we're trying to push at this point. So Bob Thomas is going to go back and refine his numbers and come back to the township with a proposal. He's estimating that the planning is going to take $15,000 to $20,000. I'm not quite sure how we're going to pay for that, if that's what we come back with. John is going to get us on the agenda for July. Hopefully the commissioners at that point, since they've already submitted the application, it must mean they support this, the extension of the trail. So we're hoping that they will then support the planning. And we're also going to need to start negotiations with PennDOT, because PennDOT owns the right-of-way. But this is a very exciting project, because the trail is exceedingly popular. There's just no question about that. And extending it, probably 95% of the people in the township have no idea what Martha Brown's Woods is like. But if we can extend the trail, it just will give you an entirely different feel to the trail, because there you are in a totally wooded, rustic area. And in my opinion, Martha Brown's Woods is probably the prettiest piece of open space left in the township. The other thing that I want to start to work on soon is a meeting with Tom Blomstrom in the Park and Rec Board about what goals they think we should be pushing. We have, following up what Al said, we've made an awful lot of progress in the goals in this area, but there's still work to be done. I'm disappointed that we haven't made more progress on our Drossen than we have, but we've been talking about how terrible the economic climate is, and that really has put that project, I think, on hold until we can really turn things around and develop a greater, I think, viability in the residential market. But we have a lot going on, and money will remain the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, John. Questions, comments for John? Okay. Next one, Cheryl, you and I are involved in,
Right.
but that's historical and archaeological. But I know that,
Architectural.
I know what.
Architectural.
No.
He's not only a good bad speller, but he's a bad reader.
I mean, that's the old one. Go by the approved minutes, it's archaeological.
Was that you digging in my backyard?
That was me. But anyway, I know I haven't done anything, and I doubt you have, so.
No, I have.
Have you?
We have.
Okay.
We have,
No, I apologize.
the Friends of the Willows Cottage.
That's right, yes.
The Willows Cottage is, let me see, I submitted them for, I think I may have said this at another meeting, I'm not sure. At any rate, I sent in an application for them to be rewarded for their efforts by the
That's great.
Historical Commission of Delaware County, and they received that award. It was a very nice ceremony, and Mark Janasek went there because it's an amazing project, and it's really caught everybody's imagination. And now we are working on, and they have received another award, Henry Jordan, I think it is, award. And now we are working on yet another award from Preservation Pennsylvania for this project. So we're hoping that that'll be the case, and we can move not only, now that with all of this behind it, it will also perhaps become on the National Register along with the Willows itself, and then we'll have another township site that it's on the National Register. And I know that if you look back, the way that Al did of looking at what happened before, we've really come very far with
Right.
the historic aspects that are cited in the comprehensive plan. Our historic districts at South Wayne, North Wayne, and Luella Court now have local protection, which they did not have before, though all of them were on the National Register. The two big ones were on the National Register. So we'd like to start looking for getting some of these other sites, the scattered sites around the township, to give them some protection also. So that's another venue that we're looking through. And so that's what we're planning to do, and we're hoping that we get this next award also. Fingers crossed. But we need to preserve what's so beautiful about the township.
Absolutely. That's
Cheryl,
right, to
the-
forget about that. Thank you.
And in terms of restoration projects, if you had to look, now that with this one behind you, if you had to pick something else that could take these kinds of efforts, is there another restoration project that you have?
I don't know, this one's so dazzling to me because it's like it's got a little everything in it. It's, they're making this building sustainable. They're taking care of the environment all around it. They're doing outreach to teach people, even for an old building like that, how to retrofit it in some way for the future. There are probably you could probably do a lot of things with the Willows itself to make it more sustainable also. And so I don't know whether things kind of pop up. I called this in a thing serendipity, where we started out just trying to save the cottage from being destroyed, and then we found all of these other wonderful aspects to it. The CSA fits in, it's all coming together so nicely. So I can't imagine anything being quite as wonderful as this project is right now, but then I'm in love with it right now, so who knows?
John,
This,
Just on now, right?
just to echo what Charles said, this has been a great community project, and
Yeah.
there's been a coalition of organizations involved.
Yeah.
We are now getting down to the nitty-gritty. Mark Janasek and the people that have worked on this have done a tremendous job, particularly with in-kind donations of services, and they've really done a lot to turn that building around. But we are getting to the stage now where we're going to need some really serious dollars to finish the project. I think we're looking at probably another $500,000, and in this environment, I'm not quite sure, how we're going to come up with it. But we're going to set to start a fundraising campaign pretty soon if we're going to complete that project.
Right, but it's wonderful that whatever they get, they immediately put it to use.
Yes, that is-
They are just immediately moving it along. Hand to mouth, right, exactly, thank you. Right, they are certainly immediately doing it, so thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anything else for Cheryl? John Simon, institutional use?
The only one that I would mention tonight is Valley Forge Military Academy in North Wayne, and those of us who've been around in the township for a length of time recall that they have gone through some very difficult financial times, even when the economy was quite good. But they are at the moment talking about raising money and doing some new buildings and upgrading their campus, and I will be following up their progress in those areas. End of report.
That's fine, not a problem. All right, great, thank you, John. Anything
I
for
assume, John, at this
Yeah.
point, they've mentioned a couple places where they might put the new buildings, but they haven't zeroed in on a location, have they?
That's my understanding. Yes, sir.
And they're fairly large, right? 30,000 square feet plus? Did I remember that right?
I don't know.
They are large, it is.
Yeah, it was big,
It is.
big, it was,
Absolutely.
I think I picked it up as in the
Significant
Inquirer.
sized building, but
There's an article in the Inquirer.
yeah.
Matt, they didn't have any land development applications, have they?
I wish. We've gone 4 months now without, 4 months without a land development, where we have that broken next month with finally our first one coming back in. So,
Oh, wow.
But it's not Valley Forge.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, John. Dottie, land
Okay.
use planning.
Thank you. Yeah, like with some of the other areas, we've been making great progress in the existing land use plan, but the one that we're going to start taking a look at is number 168, which the recommendation is to further study of the area of Lancaster Avenue west of Bloomingdale to Old Eagle School. kind of a mishmash of commercial and residential. There's lots of stuff going on there. And I am in the process of getting a small exploratory committee together, of which I have, Matt has indicated
Does he know?
his willingness to serve. But I also have reached out to Tredyffrin Township. I'd like to get a member of their planning
that's a good idea.
commission involved with this, and a member of our planning commission. So again, just a real small group to start, but hopefully try to, have a multi-municipal approach, since this is the area that borders Tredyffrin. And I know it's an area they're concerned about as well. Anyway, so it's in very preliminary stages at this point, but my goal is to get a small group together, have a couple meetings, and maybe come back with some thoughts on where to go, whether it's zoning, consolidations, or I don't know what. It's a very complicated area. So anyway, that's where this group is headed.
That sounds great. I can think of no better person to head that up, too, by the way.
Right.
That sounds very challenging.
I'm very
say
excited
the least.
about it, because I remember during the comprehensive planning process, it kept striking me that I wished the Wayne business overlay, or some kind of overlay to change that, to direct that area, would have been done with the Wayne Business Overlay
Yeah.
District. So I'm excited that you're doing this. This is excellent.
Well, and if there's anybody on this committee who would be interested in coming to I'll let you know when the meeting is set up, because I think any input that we can get at this point, particularly from people who have a lot of knowledge of the area, would be really valuable. So I'll let you all know.
Thanks, Donnie.
Thanks, Donnie. Anything for Donnie? Okay, just something real quick on can each one of you just write up something real quick, even bullet points, so I can put it into some sort of minutes instead of me trying to recreate? I'd appreciate it. The other thing I think Donnie just picked up on is if you're going to have some meetings, just email everybody, because listening to everybody, there's a lot that overlaps with each of us, and it might be good to at least sit in to understand it. And the other thing is also feel free to create your own subcommittee as you feel necessary, with as many people or whatever other resources you want to have. So thank you very much for your reports. I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Rick Barker is not going to say anything? Okay, not a problem. Thank you. I would like to say congratulations. I would like to say congratulations to Rick, and I know the other Rick is on the committee for going through the planning commission process, and congratulations on that. And very well done.
We have a couple more hurdles.
Well, yeah, but
I'm Sarah Pilling. I live at 29 Garrett, and Cheryl should know that if we can ever get the date together, that a group of Garrett Hillians are going to be working with Beverly Barnes to start looking at creating Garrett Hill as an historic district, which will give us another layer of protection, and if nothing else, will make Garrett Hillians feel that they're really worthy of being in a historic place.
Right.
So just wanted you to know that. Hopefully mid-June, but Beverly's mother's not well, and we finally found a volunteer, and her father's not well. So that's what happens when you're the middle generation and you have to take care of both halves at the same time. But we will be starting that process this summer.
That's
Great.
very good
Thank you,
news.
Sam.
I want to say that the Garrett Hill Historic Tour was absolutely delightful. I think that people have no idea what wonderful assets are there, and what a lovely and rich history they have. Excellent.
thanks, sir. Any old business? I just have one thing from the meeting minutes of April 2nd, number 8. I did meet with Planning Chair Mark Rhodes and Parks and Rec Chair Tom Corrick to start the dialogue of how best to interact and how other boards can get things moving. They were very interested and did feel that there was a need to start cross-communicating. So we're going to take that as we go forward as well. Old business, new business.
I have one thing.
Wait a minute.
Almost got me, John. I wanted to inform the rest of the implementation committee here that I have been accepted an offer for a position in another state down in South Carolina to do work for about a 3-month stint. And fortunately, it seems to cover over that quiet period that this committee spends during the summer months, and that even though I will continue to do research and do things. I will not be here or present for any of the upcoming meetings. And should that status change, I'll be sure to inform my chair and the rest of the members of the committee.
We're in South Carolina.
It's a little town called Ladson, which is about 15 minutes north of Charleston.
That sounds great. Rick, good luck with that. Are you still going to have the same email address and everything?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll communicate and
Good.
Yep.
keep you in the loop and keep us in the loop, and I hope goes well, and hope not well enough where you don't come back, but whatever's good for you and your family, I'm sure. We all wish you the best.
Great. Thank
So,
you.
Thank you, Rick. Anything else?
Now I'll move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.